All right. BiggerPockets presents how to find, analyze, and finance an incredible rental property deal. You guys thought it would never get here, but it did. We are finally here. We're going to start this webinar. So today, that's what we're going to talk about: finding, analyzing, and financing an incredible rental property. So number one, I'm going to turn my mic up a little bit just to make sure that let's see, that we're all good here. Bear with me one moment while I check my mic settings. I'm hearing that the mic not be working. Don't mind my dog barking in the background either. You know, that's just what he does. All right, here we go. All right, so first of all, thank you very much. Notice the little kid there saying thank you. I want to thank you guys for coming to the webinar because I know you guys had a lot of things, guys and gals have a lot of things you could be doing, but instead you're spending your time with me. I appreciate it a ton. I know there's a lot of things going on. Everyone's busy, so I will make this quick, and we will get through this thing. Let's go on. Let's see about BiggerPockets. Before we jump in, some people on this webinar might not know what BiggerPockets is, so I want to just real briefly in 30 seconds explain what BiggerPockets is and what we stand for. First of all, BiggerPockets is a real estate investing social network, marketplace, and information hub. Now that's a lot of big words thrown in there. Let me actually kind of break that down into what BiggerPockets does. First of all, we are a real estate social network. So you might have LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and BiggerPockets. So it's designed just for real estate entrepreneurs, primarily in those in the industry, to learn and grow. We also have forums that are extremely popular. I mean, over 1,000 forum posts a day on there. It's just crazy. We have a marketplace. People buy, sell properties or other things they have to offer. We have a podcast, which is the largest real estate podcast in the world that I get to co-host each week. 30, 40, 50,000 people are listening to these episodes, which blows my mind. It's incredible. Then we have the blog. The BiggerPockets blog is read by, tens of thousands of people every day. And we got 30 writers that are writing, around 30 every week, volunteer writers. The member blogs, that's an area that anybody can start a blog and just talk about their journey, what they're up to. It's kind of a neat part of the site. We have the Ultimate Beginner's Guide, which is where people can learn just a foundation of how to get started in investing in real estate. We have the property analysis software. There's a few different calculators we have, and I'll actually going to use one of them a little bit later, so you'll see that. And then there's a whole lot more. So that's just barely scratching the surface on what it is. So if you're not involved, jump in, get active. We would love to have you on the site. So join up. Yeah, looking forward to that. A little bit about me. My name is Brandon. I'm a real estate investor. I've been doing this since I was 21 years old. I am now 28 years old, so I'm still a little bit, I'm still a little young. So I've been, I think I got up to 42, 43 units now. I love being a landlord. I love being a real estate investor. I flipped houses. I love that. And I love talking about real estate. So I'm also now the VP of Marketing here at BiggerPockets, which is awesome. I get to co-host a podcast. I'm a musician. I enjoy playing guitar and drums. Not that good, though. I'm a blogger. I'm a math nerd, which you'll find out. And I'm a cat and dog lover. And I know Josh Dorkin is actually listening in on this webinar right now. And if you guys watch or listen to the podcast, you'll know that he gives me a hard time about my love for cats. So anyway, moving on. Let's talk about you. We already talked about me a whole lot, so let's talk about you. First of all, you are in the right place if. I thought this was kind of important to cover this because people don't know if they should even be on this webinar, if they want to stick around for the whole thing. Basically, you are in the right place if, one, you are brand new to real estate. If you've never invested in real estate before, or maybe you own just your own house and that's it. I know I try to put the cookies on the lower shelf for people. I'm going to try to do that throughout the whole webinar. But also, even if you are experienced, but you're just looking to increase your skills in finding, analyzing, or financing your real estate investments. Basically my theory is this. Any real estate book I get, I read. Any real estate blog post I try to read. Because everything I read, everything I learn, every investor I talk to, I learn a little bit more. And so even if you're, super seasoned, I hope you can learn something from this webinar. And I'm not going to do a lot of high-end stuff. So if you're, flipping 500 houses a year and buying 100-unit apartment complexes, I'm not sure I'm going to teach you something new, but you never know. So today, like I said, we're going to get into this thing now. Hopefully enough people have gotten in here. I've been having a little bit of trouble logging in. We're ready to go. We're going to cover three things: how to buy, how to analyze, and how to finance rental properties. So those three things, I'm going to break this webinar down into three sections: how to buy, how to analyze, how to finance. How to buy, we'll look at 10 different ways that you can find properties, like how to find them, where to look for them at. And then we're going to analyzing, and we're actually going to sit down with a example that I just pulled up like an hour ago from my local MLS. We're going to actually walk through the entire property analysis together. And then we're going to talk about how to finance those properties, and I'll actually show you some 12 different ways I think it is to finance them, including some that you can do with no money down, or if you don't have a lot. Actually, most of them you can do with no money down or limited. I'm a huge creative investing kind of guy, so how to finance, that's probably going to be your favorite part of the webinar. Most people really enjoy that, wanting to figure out how to get this without much money. So here we go. Let's get started. But first, I want to talk about how to get a free BiggerPockets Pro membership. I bribed a bunch of people and said that I'm going to give away a free BiggerPockets Pro membership to somebody who comes to the webinar. I'm not going to go all into what BiggerPockets Pro is right now. It's basically you get a whole bunch of cool stuff and abilities and networking stuff on the site. But if you want to get a free BiggerPockets Pro membership, here's what I want you guys to do. It's real simple. All I want you to do is on your webinar page there that you're looking at, I think it's get.biggerpockets.com/webinar. There's a chat window. Just do me a favor and just write in there. Just sign in. It's free. Just put your name in there and just say who you are and say who you are and what kind of your story is. I mean, sum it up in 15 words. I'm brand new to real estate investing, looking to flip houses, or I'm interested in X, Y, Z. Just real quick, write that in there. And my buddy Jaron is actually going to be kind of handling the chat side of things while I'm on this, so I don't get distracted. So he's going to pick one at random, and he's going to let me know, and we're going to give that person a free annual BiggerPockets Pro membership. So they get a 1-year membership. So that's how that's going to work. So go ahead and do that right now if you want, and he's going to do that, and we'll come back to that in a little bit, and I'll announce the winner here in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's see. Let's get started then. Hopefully that was a long enough introduction for everyone. It is 5:14 right now, my time, and we're going to try to wrap this thing up hopefully by 6 o'clock my time. So here we go. 10 ways to find great rental property deals. We're going to start with the most obvious, and that would be the MLS. Also stands for Multiple Listing Service. If you're a real estate agent, you know what that is, and if you've ever bought a house, most likely the house was listed on the MLS. That's basically anytime a real estate agent puts a house on the market, they're putting it on the MLS, and it's actually the MLS is not one thing, it's actually a collection of tons of different lists, but it's kind of an old way of doing real estate, but it's continued to today. So basically, if you go on like Zillow.com, Trulia.com, Redfin.com, the MLSonline.com, Realtor.com, all those sites generally search the MLS. They have special licenses that search it. None of them are perfect. None of them access everything. The only way to really access everything is if you have your real estate license or if you're using a realtor. So why don't we start with that? We'll talk about that real briefly. Use an agent. There's really no reason not to use an agent if you're buying a property on the MLS because the seller pays for the agent. So find yourself a real good agent, somebody that comes highly recommended, especially somebody who's hungry, and hopefully somebody that works with investors well. So that is the MLS. You can usually find deals there, though they can be tough to find. You have to really search through a lot of properties to find the good ones. But we're going to talk about that later on how kind of to screen through the fluff to find the great ones. Next, we have for sale by owner, also known as FSBO. Most people know what that is. Those are people stick a sign in the yard and they're thinking, I don't want to give a realtor all my money. I'm going to sell it for sale by owner. And that's what they do. Sometimes they throw up their sign at the grocery store. Sometimes they, I don't know, whatever, put it on Craigslist. For sale by owner, though, can be a great way to find properties that nobody else is looking at because nobody else is looking at them. I mean, unless you drove by the house, you wouldn't even know it was for sale. Number 3, direct mail. This might be a little bit more of an advanced strategy, but it's actually kind of fairly easy to understand. The idea is you send out letters to a whole lot of people, and not just anybody, but people that are most likely to be motivated to sell. So you might send it to people who haven't paid their mortgage in 3 months, and a lot of this information is public. Not everything, but a lot of information is public, or you can at least find it. You can send letters to, like, let's say you send 1,000 letters out, and you get 5% of people to actually call you back about your letter. And your letter just says, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in your area. They call you back. 5% of 1,000 is 50 people. And out of those 50 people, let's say you set appointments to go look at 20 houses, and out of those 20 houses, you buy one. Well, so 1,000 letters, Costs maybe what, somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 to send all that out if you have a service to it. In the end, you might get a rental property out of it. It seems like a pretty good trade-off for me. That would be direct mail. Next, we have Craigslist. I mentioned that a minute ago with FSBOs, but Craigslist is obviously everyone knows what Craigslist is, but there's actually two ways to use Craigslist to find rental properties. One, you can passively do it by just looking and seeing what people are listing, like, hey, for sale. You can even look for rent advertisements and then contact the owners. It's kind of a passive way. You're looking for others who are being active. Or you can get active. You can actually post an Craigslist article post that says, I'm looking to buy a rental property, or I'm looking to buy your house, or are you motivated to sell, or whatever you want to do. There's a lot of ways to do it. My good friend Jaron Barnes actually has a blog post on BiggerPockets, and you might have to search around for it or hit me up with a private message later on the site and I can find it for you. But he actually walks you through exactly how to automate that, and that is cool. You can, using like this website, If This Then That, you can automate Craigslist listings to come to your inbox every day, and you just get a ton of leads straight from Craigslist. Very, very cool stuff. So again, if you want to know more about that, just send me a private message, and we can make that happen. So let's move on to the next one. Driving for dollars. All right, driving for dollars is the practice of driving around your streets, whether it's I don't know, up and down your neighborhood, another neighborhood, whatever neighborhood you want to buy property in, and looking for properties that may be good potential rental properties. A lot of times you can spot them by thinking, look for long grass, look for boarded up windows. You don't need, if you don't want a junker, don't buy a junker, but just look for signs that people might be motivated to sell. That can be a really good way to find properties, is just by driving around and doing the hustling that nobody else is willing to do. Next one is the BiggerPockets Marketplace. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a marketplace. You can find it at biggerpockets.com/marketplace. And people buy and sell properties all the time. A lot of people make a lot of money buying and selling properties on the marketplace. So definitely check that place out. Next, eviction records. This kind of ties into some of the other methods we talked about, like direct mail, but you can actually go and search public records of evictions, of landlords that are doing evictions currently, and you can contact them. Because if any of you have ever been through an eviction on like the landlord side, or I guess the tenant side too, but if you've ever been through an eviction, it is painful. It is painful to get through. Emotionally, it's painful. And so it just, even if your lawyer handles, I mean, my lawyer handles it all. I've done 2 evictions now, and they've been terrible. And if somebody would have come to me in the middle of that eviction and been like, hey, Brandon, I'll give you like $1 for your property, I'd have been like, take it. I'll give you $1 to take my property. I was so like emotionally distraught over having to deal with this. Really, it was tough. So hit them up, call them up, send them a letter when they're going through evictions. It's a good way to find properties. Next would be LoopNet or CoStar. This applies to larger multifamilies or commercial properties. But these websites, I think it's loopnet.com and CoStar.com, I think. They are basically like the MLS, sort of. They're private companies, though. They're like the MLS for larger commercial properties. So if you're looking for a 20-unit apartment or a 100-unit apartment, you can check that out. A lot of people complain that all the deals are gone once they hit LoopNet. And somebody said on the podcast recently that LoopNet's the place where deals go to die. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but it can be tough to get a good deal. So online advertising. This is probably one of my personal favorites. I love online advertising. The idea is everybody here probably has a Facebook. They probably search Google. And the idea is when you advertise to those people on those channels, whether it's on Facebook or Google or Bing or I don't know, whatever you use, Yahoo, Lycos, essentially people will see your ad and then click on it, go to your website, and maybe end up calling you. I have an ad going right now on Facebook that essentially says, are you looking to sell your house in Aberdeen? Aberdeen's a town that's right near mine. We buy houses, or I'll buy your house in any condition, cash. And then they click that, they go to my website, and then they can contact me. And I get a few leads every week just from that. And I think I'm only paying $5 a day for that. You can kind of choose whatever you want. Again, Facebook, Google, whatever you want to do. Very cool stuff with online advertising. And again, I don't have time to go real deep into that today, but there's a lot of information on BiggerPockets you can find out about that. So that's that. Finally, last one would be wholesalers. I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with what the concept of wholesaling is, but think of Costco as a wholesaler, right? They buy from the manufacturers and they sell to usually the retail, I guess. They're kind of like a middleman. I don't know, maybe Costco's not the best example, but they kind of work as the middle person. That's what a wholesaler does. They go out and find good deals. They go out and find motivated sellers using techniques like direct mail or any of the driving for dollars, eviction records, whatever. And then they go and find a investor, and they say, will you buy this deal for me? I got it under contract for $50,000. Will you buy it for $55,000? And then you get a deal for $55,000. So if you can buy from a wholesaler, it can be a real good way to not have to do all the marketing that they do and all the hustling that they do. So the one caution I'd say is a lot of wholesalers, a lot of people try to wholesale, but wholesaling is very, very difficult. Very difficult. And I'd say for every 100 people who try to wholesale, one person's ever doing it 3 months later. It is a very high turnover, self-employed job. So, but if you can find a good one, hang on to them, and it can be a great source of income or properties. So let's move on. How to analyze a rental property. This is where I start having a lot of fun because I'm a math nerd through and through. I was the captain of my high school math league, and so I really enjoy doing math. I know I'm a weird. So when we're talking about analyzing a rental property, what exactly are we talking about? What are we looking for? There's two things primarily. Number one is cash flow. We want to know how much cash flow, how much extra income every month is going to be put into our pocket. Meaning, if all the expenses were $500, but I made $600, then my cash flow was $100. I mean, in any business, cash flow is how much money you have left in your wallet at the end of the day. We're going to dive into that a little bit more in a second, but the other thing people look for is appreciation. That would be prices going up in value, right? So those are kind of the main drivers what we're looking at when we're analyzing properties, and I'm going to focus mostly on cash flow today because appreciation is kind of a gamble, right? We don't know what the market's ever going to do. We can try to predict it, but in the end, we have no idea, or not much of an idea. So again, I shoot for cash flow, and that's what we're going to focus on today, and because I like that monthly income, I really do. So before we get into the actual analyzing a specific property, let me tell you about the rules. And I add there the rules of thumb because they're not necessarily rules as in put your gum in the drinking fountain, because that's a rule that matters, people. But rules of thumb are things that are just good ideas. What I use these rules for are for quick screening. And so I'm going to teach you about them both so you know how to do them and you know how not to do them and when not to do them. The first one is the 50% rule. It basically says over time, 50% of your income are going to go out in expenses, not including the mortgage. So 123 Main Street is a triplex that rents for $600 per unit, and 600 times 3, of course, is $1,800 for all the math nerds out there. And if you had $1,800, multiply that times 50%, you get $900. That's what money you have left to pay the mortgage. So every month you have $900. So $900 minus the mortgage is going to be your cash flow estimate. Not too complicated there. So for example, if your mortgage was $500 on a property, and that's principal and interest, 900 minus 500 equals 400. That you could estimate quickly cash flow is going to be 400. Again, please don't run with this, and we're going to talk about why not, but just keep in mind that the 50% rule is a way to quickly screen through 100 properties in about 20 minutes. It's not a way to decide if you're going to buy a property. Let's go back to the rules again. So we talked about the 50% rule. The next one is the 2% rule. And also people say 1% rule or the 1.5% rule. We really should coin a new term for that to make more sense. But basically the 2% rule is a ratio that shows the relationship between monthly rent and the purchase price. So let's do that same example again. 123 Main Street is a triplex that rents for $600 a unit. Again, that's $1,800 a month. The asking price is $170,000. Does it meet the 2% rule? Well, $1,800 total monthly rent divided by $170,000 is just 0.01059, which is in a percentage is 1.06%. So no, it does not meet the 2% rule. It does meet the 1% rule. It's better than 1%, but it's not quite 2. It's not even 1.5. What's a good number to buy at? It's really hard to say. Personally, I won't even look at a property if it's under 1%. I mean, it's not even worth me looking at it because I'm pretty sure it's not going to cash flow. Some people might disagree with that, but I have one property that I own that is right at the 1% rule, and I lose money on that every month. It was one I bought before I knew what any of this was and how to analyze a property, and I made a lot of mistakes, and that's why I'm here today teaching you how to not make these mistakes. So we got the 50% rule and the 2% rule. I just think they're important rules to know. However, never buy a property based only on a rule of thumb. I can't stress that enough. Don't buy a property based on a rule of thumb. It's just a rule of thumb. It's to help you quickly run through a lot of properties and narrow down the ones you want to actually do a deeper analysis on, which is what we're going to do. So, how to analyze a rental property. I mean, when it comes down to cash flow, we talked about earlier, it's basically just your cash flow is your total income minus your total expenses. That seems really easy. It seems like a fifth grader could do it, but it's not so easy sometimes. We got two sides of the side. We got income and expenses, right? Normal people, and most people don't think about it, they think, okay, well, rental income and your mortgage. Those are the expenses, that's the income, great. So if I'm renting my unit out for $1,000 a month and my mortgage is $800, boom, I just made $200 a month in income or in cash flow. That's incorrect. There are other things that people probably aren't thinking about. Income side, you might get extra income like laundry, storage fees, late fees, other fees, charges, whatever. And then people are like, oh, wow, I get even more cash flow. But then they forget about the other expenses. Let's say property taxes and insurance. Well, those are the obvious ones, right? Everybody knows that there's property taxes and insurance. You got to account for that. Most people don't make that mistake. Where they end up making the mistake is at these, like flood insurance, vacancy factor, repairs, maintenance, capital expenditures, which I'll talk about in a second, water, sewer, garbage, septic, fees, permits, others, HOAs. I didn't add that to the list, but I should have. Those things are what really will sink an investment if you're not accounting for all those separate things that can nail you later. So capital expenditures, just so people know, what that means is those are kind of like repairs, but they're the big ticket repairs that only happen from time to time. Things like a roof, things like a parking lot, things like new siding. I mean, the fact is our properties are always breaking down. They're always falling apart. Every single house in the world is in a continuous state of falling apart, and occasionally they need to be repaired. Right now I'm in the process of redoing all the siding on my apartment complex, and it is miserable because it's a lot of money. So if you don't account for that, you're in trouble. So let's actually talk about that. The 10 mistakes that real estate investors make when analyzing deals. I like this picture a lot because, I don't know, it makes me giggle. The guy gets his hair cut. So we're going to use that as kind of our backdrop for a little bit on these 10 mistakes that investors make. Number 10, relying too heavily on the 50% rule or the 2% rule. Like I said, if you rely too heavily on that, you're going to run yourself into some trouble. So careful. Number 9, underestimating the repair cost to get it rent ready. That is not, that is a very common occurrence. That's something that I've done a lot. I think, well, this is only a couple $100 to get this rent ready, and then in the end it's like $3,000. And so that's going to throw all your analysis numbers off if you don't accurately know how much it's going to cost to fix up the property. Forgetting closing costs, no property is free generally to buy it. Usually you're going to have several thousand in closing costs, maybe more. I like to estimate just like $5,000 whenever I buy a property. I just estimate that. Usually it's not that much, but you never know. Also, people overestimate the ARV, which stands for after repair value, and they overestimate the rental income. So it's like, well, I think this house is going to be worth $200,000, and it'll probably rent for $2,000 a month because it's going to be pretty. Well, if the market and the only will allow, I mean, a property is only worth and will only rent for what the market will bear. People aren't going to rent that for $2,000 if they can rent the one down the street for $1,500, and they're pretty similar. So don't overestimate your ARV and your rental income. Number 6 is people counting on appreciation. Now, maybe there's a time and a place for appreciation. I mean, there definitely is. A lot of wealth has been built that way. But people who count on that to bail them out of a bad deal is terrible. I only buy investments that are good today. Obviously, I hope that they're good tomorrow and they're going to continue to climb in value, but I don't buy based on the future. I buy based on today. Number 5 is relying on the pro forma from the broker. A pro forma essentially is just the sales information that the broker puts together saying, here's what the property is doing. And I'm not saying that brokers lie, but brokers lie. And so the information that they give you may or may not, and usually not, is accurate. They try to paint the picture in the best picture they can on what the property is like, but there's always little things that they don't account for. Number 4, not planning for property management. This is a big one. And maybe other investors would disagree with me on this one, but from personal experience, when I started buying properties, I said, well, I can manage myself. That's not a big deal. I'll just manage myself. It's only one property. And well, it's only 2 properties. I can manage myself. So I never accounted for property management in there. Well, now that I have a lot of units, I'm at that point where I can't just suddenly switch over to property management because I never budgeted for it to begin with. I never bought the properties knowing I was going to need property management. And so that was a mistake on my end, and I'm battling that right now. So I'm trying to warn you people. please plan for property management. Even if you don't use property management, budget for it anyway. Set aside the money, pay yourself. But make sure you include that so when the time comes when you scale your business up, you can scale and you're not stuck. Number 3, don't forget to include vacancy costs. Yeah, vacancy costs are a real thing. If you think your unit will rent for $1,000 a month, don't tell yourself that you're going to get $12,000 a year out of that property, because the property is going to sit vacant. Let's say an average, I don't know, 10% a year, 5% a year. You got to include vacancy in there because it is a real number. Number 2, not accounting for CapEx. We touched on this earlier, so I don't need to go too deep into it. But if you're not planning to replace the parking lot that you know is getting old, you're in trouble. So if you're planning on being a buy and hold investor for a long time, you need to set aside money every month for CapEx. And number 1, biggest mistake people make is not doing an analysis. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I bet you half the people who buy rental properties probably don't do anything more than math in their head to see if it's a good deal. Or maybe not even that. Just look at it like, well, this is a pretty house. Let's buy it for an investment. Terrible, stupid idea. So always do the math, and that's what we're going to do here. So to do this, I'm going to actually use the BiggerPockets rental property calculator. You can get that at biggerpockets.com/calc. If you guys want to open up a separate tab and go explore it with me, you're more than welcome to. Technically, the BiggerPockets rental property calc and the other calcs we have are for Plus and Pro members only, but I think you can use them 1 or 2 or 3 times before you're locked out. So if you want to play with it today, go ahead. You do have to have a BiggerPockets membership at least to do it. So keep that in mind. But otherwise, just follow along with me. I mean, you're going to be seeing the same thing, so you don't actually have to go there. But if you want to play around with it, it's kind of cool. So let's go to that. All right, so I'm going to take a moment here, so bear with me while I switch screens on you. And I'm going to have you get into this new window. One moment. Bear with me here. I'm kind of new with this G+ Google Hangout thing. Screen share. All right, here we go. Look at that. All right. All right, hopefully at this point everybody can see my screen. Just in case not, let me flash over real quick and make sure. All right, one moment. I just want to make sure everybody can see my screen. And there's like a 30-second delay on this, so I can't see for 30 seconds that it's actually working. It's kind of obnoxious, but I'll get over it. All right. All right, good. I think we're there because I'm looking at it. So, all right, these are the different calculators we got: the fix and flip analysis, we got the rental property calculator, the wholesaling calculator, which is being built right now, and then a couple more: mortgage and 70% rule. We're not going to talk about those. We're going to do a rental property calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new report. Now, you could do this on an Excel document. I did that for a few years, and then I turned my Excel document into this because it's 1,000 times faster and more thorough and better in pretty much every regard. So let's do that. Hey, actually, while we're sitting here, I'm going to have Jaron. Jaron, why don't you send me a message and let me know the one person who won the Pro membership, because I feel like giving that away now. It's a good time to do that. Let's see. I'll wait for that. I'll introduce this a little bit, and when he sends that to me, we'll go on. So, all right, this is a buy and hold calculator. Basically, I'm just going to plug in numbers from a deal into this calculator, and we're going to find out how it works. So, let's see. This is a property I pulled up seriously an hour and a half ago. It's on the market right now. You could go buy this if you wanted to. And let's see. So these are the this is a property 120 South Chehalis Street. It is in Montesano, Washington. That's actually my town. We're going to analyze this property. This is actually an 8-unit. It says major price reduction, now priced to sell. Bring your offers on this investment opportunity to acquire this multifamily 8-plex rental property. Okay, so it sounds kind of cool. I mean, that's right up my alley. I love properties like this. So we're going to actually run this through. So going back to the calculator, I'm going to flip back and forth between the two. Don't get confused. And I'm just going to fill out this calculator. Now, it's going to take me a little longer to do this because I'm explaining as I go. But really, you could probably do this in about 3 minutes. But report title is Chehalis Street. The address is 120 South Chehalis. The city is Montesano, Washington 98563. Annual property taxes are, we're going to go back to the listing. And by the way, I'm using Redfin for this, redfin.com. You could use Zillow, Trulia. You could use the information that you get from, and you can use information from whatever. But I like Redfin. Whatever. Do what you want. So I'm gonna scroll down here. Hey, actually, Jaren got back to me with the winner. Hey, why don't we announce? I'm gonna wait until I get to this. Then I'm gonna announce the winner. But cool. All right. Let's see. We need to know the tax, because that's the part. Let me go back to the calculator. Annual property taxes. I scroll down the information. Annual taxes, $3,011. Let's see. Well, now we need to know the MLS number. You don't have to put that number in. In fact, I'm not going to put it in right now. I don't really see a reason that I have to, so I'm going to leave that out. I'm going to add a photo though, because it make more sense why later I want to do a photo. But I'm going to choose one, and I got to find it on my desktop. But first, I got to take a picture of this. So I'm going to go back over to this real quick. I'm going to take a photo of it. If you have a Mac, this is really easy. You just hit, I don't know, Command-Shift-4. If you got a PC, it's a little more work. You just got to drag the photo and right-click and hit Save As and put it on your desktop. But I just took a picture of it, put it on my desktop. Here it is, screenshot. Open that up, and now that's going to be there. Property sales description, that's this information right here. I'm going to add it because when I'm all done with this, I want to have a nice-looking report that I can give to somebody. Other property features, I could fill out any of this information I want to. Like property type, it's actually a large multifamily, year renovated, unit stories, year built, blah, 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 blah. If I was really doing this for real, going to give it to somebody, I would probably do that, but I don't want to bore all you with that. So I'm going to hit next step. Purchase price, how much was it? $325,000. After repair value on this thing, we're not really sure what the after repair value is. So I'm going to actually put just the same price, $325,000, because I'm offering them what they're asking. You know, I'm not really going to, but for this case, I'm going to put the same number. Closing costs, remember earlier I said I usually just estimate a nice $1,000 number. You actually could expand this and put all the origination fees, hazard, flood, taxes, and assessment, blah, blah, blah. Right now, $5,000, that works for me. Estimated repair costs. Well, you know, that can be tough, and if you're interested in being really, really good at that, if you go to biggerpockets.com/flippingbook, we actually sell the book on estimating rehab costs by Jay Scott. It's like, I don't know, $30. You get 2 books, the book on flipping and the book on estimating rehab costs. I highly recommend every single real estate investor on planet Earth read those 2 books, whether or not you want to flip or not. But the book on estimating rehab costs is amazing. Again, biggerpockets.com/flippingbook. But anyway, I'm just going to do a couple ballpark guesses here. I mean, looking at the property, I can see the siding's rough. It looks like it might be pretty bad. Needs a paint job, definitely. There's a tarp on the roof, needs a new roof at least. So, I mean, it definitely is not in pristine condition. There's another roof, maybe it's the other side of it, I don't know. Definitely needs some help. So let's go back over to the rental property calculator. Estimated repair cost, just for now, I'm going to type in a nice round $50,000 estimated repair cost number. Again, when I do this numbers, if I was going to get contractors to bid it, I would put those numbers in here. But for now, that'll serve my purpose. Let's see. All right, now we got to do the loan details. I could do cash purchase and say I'm going to pay cash, but I'm not going to pay cash for this. Instead, I'm going to put down a down payment of, let's be conservative and go 20%. It automatically figures out that the loan amount is going to be $260,000, and I know at this point it tells me that the cash I'm going to need is $120,000 so far. And it figures that because I'm going to need the down payment, the 20%, and I'm going to need the repair costs, and I'm going to need the closing costs, all put into this thing. So 20% down payment. A loan, typical loan rates right now are between 5 and 6%. I don't know, let's estimate 5 for now. For a multifamily anyway. Most single families might be lower. And then I have a choice. Do I want to wrap the loan fees into the loan, or do I want to pay them out of pocket? This is usually more common for flipping houses. You wrap them into the loan. So we're just going to say pay out of pocket. Interest only, no, it's just a normal loan. And amortized means spread out, sort of. Spread out over 30 years. That's a pretty typical loan here. I'm going to go next step. And total gross monthly rent. Well, how much does this thing rent for? Let's go back over to the listing and go see. So they put the numbers, information here. They talk about how much each of these units rent for, and I can look and say that's about right for my area. That's a bit high for my area. Like this, I doubt they're getting for a 2-bedroom. I doubt they're getting $595 out of this property. I mean, I usually rent my 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $525, but whatever. I mean, again, we can dive into that later, doing more in thorough advanced analysis of this. But for now, we're just going to go look at what they claim. They're claiming total monthly income $4,370. Okay, we'll use that number for now, even though I think that may be high. We'll use it. Other monthly income, I don't have any more. They didn't list any more, so we're just going to leave it at that, $4,370. Now we want to do expenses. They don't actually break down any expenses. So the agent who listed this did not put any expenses on here. Oh, they put one, insurance. Okay, well, nice guy. $2,900 a year for insurance. So we can at least add that one in. Electricity, I'm going to guess that everyone's individually metered, so I'm not going to have to pay for much other than maybe the outside light, maybe the washing machine if there is one. So I'm going to estimate $100 for now. Water, again, that's hard to say exactly, but I know that my 24 unit costs me currently $1,000 a month in water. So if I divided 24 by 3 to get 8, I'm going to say water is probably about the same, so 33 for water. Sewer is on the same bill, so I won't put that. Garbage is actually right about the same amount for me. It's about $1,000 a month for garbage, which is really high. So I don't know. Let's say estimate $300 a month for garbage for this place. HOAs, we're not going to have any homeowners association on this property. And any other monthly expenses we can think of. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any more. But if you know some, you can add them there. You can also add them individually, line item there. And then finally, let's get to the variable expenses. Vacancy rate, it's hard to say. In my area, I'd say 5% is probably pretty typical. I might want to say 10% because I'm not going to manage this. My property manager would, and she's not as good as me. So, let's put 10% down. Repairs and maintenance, that's tough, right? How much are we going to pay for that? We're going to say, let's say 10% for that as well. So what about capital expenditures? These are the things, like I said, the roof. Now we're going to put 50 grand into the property when we first buy it, so we don't need to worry about that roof and the other ones. So maybe I'm just going to do 5% for now. Okay. And then property management fees. My property managers around here charge 10% of the monthly rent that comes in, plus 50% whenever they rent a new unit out. And that averages right around 12% a year, maybe 11, 12% a year. So we're going to use 12 for now. Last thing we need to do before figuring out our results is the income increase per year. And this is more for appreciation. If you're in an area that you're positive that appreciation is going up, you can put a big number here, but I wouldn't. I mean, I'm just going to put 1% now, just so, oops, not 11. Whew. So I'm just going to say, let's see. Oh, you know what? Somebody just told me. Oh, he's right. Look at that. Somebody just messaged me. You're right. Okay, monthly insurance is not annual insurance. Thank you, Anthony. You rock. All right, so $2,900 a year for insurance divided by 12 is actually only 241. I would have been really confused a minute from now when I got a huge number. So again, thank you, Anthony. You rock. Let me see. So that's all the numbers we got here. Why don't we do our calculation, figure out what it comes out as. Takes probably, I don't know, 10 seconds for it to do its little beep, boop, boop, bop, boop, bop, beep, bop, 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 boop, bop, bop. Technology. That's what it sounds like, people. All right, here's where we get to see the results. These are the results of the analysis. So looking at this, the income we figured out earlier was $4,370. The expenses, according to the calculator, $4,237. Meaning the monthly cash flow on this property would be a whopping $132.45 a month. I know you could probably send your kids to college on that, I'm sure. I'm not going to go into the cap rate stuff right now, just because we don't have the time, or NOI. But basically, the important things here is it's going to take $120,000 to buy this property, and I'm only going to make $132 a month. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a very good deal to me. It doesn't sound priced to sell like they say it was. The cash-on-cash ROI, which is kind of like what is our return on investment on this property? It's a good way to kind of compare apples to oranges with stock market or whatever else. You get a whopping 1.32% return. So if I were whoever is going to buy this property, I would stick my $120,000 over in a CD because it's a whole lot less work than buying a rental property for a 1.32% thing. Yeah. So I mean, you can kind of see the breakdown here of income expenses. Now I want to show you something really, really interesting. And And that we talked about earlier. Do you remember the 50% rule we talked about? Is that 50% of the income goes out in expenses. And do you remember I said never buy a property based on a rule of thumb? And here is why. Check out the numbers when you analyze with the 50% rule. According to the 50% rule, the income was $43.70. The expenses would only be $21.85, and the mortgage payment was $13.95. So your monthly cash flow would be $789. So somebody might look at this and be like, well, great, using the 50% rule, I'm going to make almost $800 a month. And then they would actually get the money, and they'd be making $132 because they, made one of those mistakes in the top 10 is they relied too heavily on the 50% rule. So again, 50% rule is not to be relied on for making purchases, only for screening. A couple more things we can look at here. We can see the debt coverage ratio, the gross rent multiplier, the initial equity that I had originally because I put down the down payment, and my sort of the 2% rule. This actually met the 1% rule. It's 1.15, and still it's a terrible deal. So I told you the 1% rule, I don't like buying that. Finally, at the end here, we can kind of see the future, what it would look like with that 1% increase. I can see year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, 10, 20, 30. And you can see that property values, the loan balance drops, over those 30 years, and the equity goes up. So by the year 30, I'd have $438,000, but I guarantee you could do a lot better than that. So please don't buy this property for $325,000. A couple things I want to show you though. If I hit this Create PDF Report button, it's going to do its little technology beep 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 bop 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 beep thing. And meanwhile, while that's working, it takes about 10 seconds. I'm going to hit Edit Report. I'm going to go back in because I'm curious. At what price would this property be worth buying it? I mean, what would make it worth it? So I go back and I look at it again. I want to change the purchase price. I'm going to change it from $325,000. What if we were only going to pay $200,000 for it? I mean, that's a $125,000 drop. And the after repair value, well, we'll say it's the same. Why not? And purchase closing costs, all that's good. And oops, I don't want to do cash purchase though. So I'm going to go down payment again. We're going to say 20. What did I say last time? I don't know. I'm going to say 20% this time. Oops, I hit that cash purchase button again. All right, 20% down payment. There we go. $160,000 loan amount. Loan interest rate, again, I'm going to go to the 5%. 30 years, just like before. Next step, gross monthly rent. We're not going to change any number here. We're going to leave everything as is. Calculate the results. Now, while that's boop, boop, bop, beep, bop, eating, we're going to go back over to the PDF that I made earlier. This is what the PDF looks like. You can print these out and give them to your lender, your partner, your spouse is especially helpful. If you want to show your spouse or partner why a deal is good or bad, this is a great way to do it. So anyway, you can print this report out and give it to somebody. It's got a cool little map and some graphs and the pictures and whatever else. So, but let's go back to look at our what if. All right, so if we had only paid $200,000 for this property, the cash flow at that point would still only be $669 a month. I mean, maybe that's better, right? So, and the only cash needed would only be $95,000 because it's a less down payment. Cash and cash return at that point, 8.45. Is that good? I don't know. Hard to say. It's really up to individual investor. Personally, I try to shoot for more than that because again, I mean, real estate is kind of an active investment. Why settle for something that the stock market could maybe give you? Now, again, people would disagree, but I want to shoot for more than 10. I want to see 15% if possible, or higher. So anyway, that is what it looks like at $200,000. Now I could go back again and keep tweaking these numbers and keep testing and playing with it until I find the value that it's worth it, and then go make an offer on this property. So it's definitely something that I could do. But let me go back to our. I'm gonna go back to our little spreadsheet here. Hey, there you guys are. I think you can see me now. All right, let me go back to our desktop. All right, here we go. I want to walk through a little bit more stuff. First of all, I want to talk about the person who won the 1 year of BiggerPockets Pro. But all right, actually, let me get through this last section, and then I'm going to do that. I promise. So I have to talk about. Okay, so we just used the BiggerPockets rental property calculator. You can try it out at biggerpockets.com/calc. Basically, like I said earlier, you have to be a BiggerPockets Pro to do that. And so this is my 30-second reason of why you should be a BiggerPockets Pro. Number one reason is because of unlimited use of the rental property calculator, the house flipping calculator, and the soon-to-be wholesaling calculator, including the ability to print PDF reports. Honestly, I mean, when I look back on my life, if I had used the kind of analysis that I'm using now to buy properties, I would be 10 times better off than I am today. I made so many mistakes, and so I mean, a pro membership costs $29 a month or $290 a year. But if if you make one smarter decision in all of your career, I mean, it can change your entire future. It pays itself over 100 times. So that's the number one reason why. Also, download unlimited files from the file place, get exclusive discounts and promotions and BiggerPockets perks. That's kind of a cool new thing we got going. Increase your networking abilities through BiggerPockets Meet. Get more keyword alerts, which is kind of a way you can keep tabs on what's going on the BiggerPockets community. Like if somebody says we're having a Seattle meetup, which we are very soon. So if you don't have keyword alerts, you wouldn't know that's coming up. But I have a keyword alert set for Seattle, so every time somebody mentions Seattle, I jump into that conversation. Boom, I'm the guy that greets the Seattle people. So it's a good way to get known in your market, to meet new people, and to just kind of be known as the connector. And finally, you can post ads in the marketplace. And there's a lot more cool stuff you can do. If you guys want to learn more about BiggerPockets Pro, just go to biggerpockets.com/pro, and you can learn more about it there. This is just kind of basically what it is. $9 a month for Plus, $29 a month for Pro. Plus, you get a few cool things, but Pro, you get everything. I highly recommend it. And the last thing, before I announce the winner of this $29 a month for 12 months winner of BiggerPockets Pro, is first time ever we actually implemented a coupon code system for Pro memberships. So anybody on this webinar, anybody at all wants to sign up for BiggerPockets Pro today, you can get 30% off your membership for the entire year. If you buy a $209 a year Pro membership, you actually get 30% off that, or if you do it monthly, you can get 30% off every month for the next 12 months. So pretty sweet promotion. We've never actually discounted our Pro memberships before, ever. This is the first time because this is the first webinar of the year. So we may run promotions from time to time, but I doubt they'll ever get any better than this because this is awesome. So if you want to sign up for BiggerPockets Pro, please do so by entering code webinar30 into the there's a link at the bottom of the page you're currently on. It says sign up for BiggerPockets Pro. Just go there and you should be able to sign up for and put the coupon code in. If for some reason the coupon code, there isn't even a slot for coupon code, click on plus and then click on Pro again. It'll show up. I know that sounds weird. Try it out. I promise it'll well, I don't promise, but I think it'll work. Like I said, we just built that system today. Our developer, Jarrett, did it, and it was awesome. So let me go on because I know you're all bored. Let me actually announce who won first, so that way that person doesn't go and sign up. So I'm going to go ahead and say the winner is, all right, Danielle, 23, a paramedic, really wants to get into real estate. Yeah, thank you so much, she said. So Danielle, thank you very, very much. We are going to connect with you later in the webinar. I'm going to have Jaron actually reach out to you via the little chat window that you're on right now and get your email address and get connected with you. If you, for some reason, already left, hopefully we'll track you down. And yeah, congratulations to Danielle. Thank you very much. You rock, and I'm glad to have you yeah, as a new BiggerPockets Pro member. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about how to finance your rental properties, including how to do it with minimal cash out of pocket, because this is really why everybody is here. Am I right? We all want to know how to actually pay for these things. Especially, I mean, the first one's sometimes kind of obvious how to do it. You know, save up some money maybe, but it gets harder as you go. And some people don't even have enough to buy the first one. I know I personally, I don't believe I've ever put any money of my own into any real estate property I've ever bought. And people think that's weird that I say that. But I think every single property I bought, I've used somebody else's money and somehow made it work. So kind of a neat, I'm trying to live my whole life by that policy. We'll see how long it can last. But let's go into that. I'm going to talk about 12 different ways to finance a rental property. For those people who are interested, I think I mentioned it earlier, I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. So when it comes out, I hope everybody that's on this webinar right now goes and buys it because, you know, I don't know, support BP, support me, and you can learn all these 12 ways to finance rental properties with no money down or little money down. So let's get to that. All right, number one is cash. This is not a no money down way, obviously. Cash is the obvious one. If you finance your investment property, you have a lot of money, you can just go pay cash for it. Great. That's actually a really good way to buy it if you're adverse to risk, because there's not a whole lot of risk when you buy in cash. Number two, conventional loans. These are the typical loans. You go to the bank, take 20% down, and get a loan from the bank. They're pretty standard, pretty straightforward. If you've ever bought in a house, most likely you probably used a conventional loan. If you've ever bought in a car, that's kind of the same thing, right? I mean, just a normal loan. The downside of conventional loans is they usually cap you at having 4. Some banks will go up to 10, but they usually cap you at about 4 conventional loans. Plus, the more properties you get, the worse your qualifying ratios are. You don't need to quite understand that, but just understand that the more properties you get, the worse your debt to income becomes, the harder it is to qualify. So you have to get more creative. So the first two are the kind of non-creative methods. Let's get a little more creative here. Number 3 would be portfolio loans. These are one of my favorite ways to invest in real estate and to buy properties. Portfolio loans are loans from banks that don't sell their loans to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Now let me explain that. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, for those who don't know, are these kind of like semi-government companies. I guess you'd call them. It's really, I don't even know exactly what to call them, but they're like these semi-government organizations that buy loans from banks, because banks go and make a loan and then they sell them up to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. And as such, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have very strict rules on what can and cannot be done with property. And so you can't try to fit what's the phrase, a round peg in a square hole. And that's what in creative investing is all about, is trying to fit square pegs in round holes and all that all day long. So it's tough. Portfolio, if I can speak right today, portfolio lenders are lenders who keep their loans, and therefore they can be more creative. They definitely, it comes down to a person or a committee that says, yes, we think this is a good loan, or no, we don't, and then they'll keep it forever. So they don't care if, you know, your debt to income, I mean, they might care, but they might not care as much if your debt to income is bad, or if you have 5 loans instead of 4. Portfolio loans are an excellent way to do that. If you're looking for a portfolio lender, try to avoid the major banks. Try to look for the smaller local community banks, credit unions, things that have maybe 5, 10 branches, and that's it. Stay away from the big guys, because you're not going to find it there. Next, FHA loans. Now, the next few things I'm going to talk about, FHA and a couple more that follow, are kind of unique in that they're not technically investment property loans. You can't actually even use them to buy a rental property, sort of. However, they're for primary residence. So if you're going to buy a house, you can use an FHA loan. FHA loans are amazing because you can get it with only putting 3.5% down. So a 3.5% down payment, and you can get an FHA loan. It's awesome. But how do you buy a rental property? Why are we talking about that? It's because of duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Or if you're in Chicago, a 2-flat, 3-flat, or 4-flat, or in Europe. Basically, these are properties. You know what they are. Duplexes, right? So the idea is an FHA loan works for these 2, 3, and 4 unit properties. So you can go buy a 4-plex with an FHA loan, put down 3.5%, and get the entire thing. Rent out the other units, and if you get a good enough deal, you can live for free. And there's multiple people that are doing it. Lots of people do it. I call it house hacking, or how to hack your housing. If you search on BiggerPockets for how to hack your housing, or just search Google how to hack your housing, you'll come up with my article, and I wrote exactly how to do that. So it's kind of a cool thing. Related to the FHA, and actually part of the FHA, is called the 203K loan. And I love the 203K loan. This is a cool loan because of what it can do for an investor. It's the exact same as part of FHA, so the rules are the same. It has to be owner-occupied for at least a year. But you can incorporate the repair costs into the loan. And what that means is, let's say you find a property that needs a lot of work, and they're asking, you can get it for $100,000, but it needs 50 grand worth of work in order to get this thing up and running. You can actually, they'll take both those numbers combined, 50 plus 100 is 150, and then you only have to pay 3.5% down payment on that total amount. That is a sweet deal for anybody trying to get started with investing in real estate. Now, it's not easy. I will say that. I mean, it is. There's a lot of paperwork and a lot of drama that has to go with it, and the contractor has to have this license, and they have to talk to this person and fill out this form, and there's a lot of red tape. But it can really do amazing things for a new investor to get started. And again, you can do it with a duplex, triplex, fourplex, or if you want to get started with flipping a house, why not flip your own house? Use a 203K loan, find a really good deal, do the math, use the flipping calculator on BiggerPockets, and then make your profit. Sell it after a year. Sell after 2 years, you don't even pay taxes. I'm not a CPA or a tax advisor guy, but current IRS code, you may be able to not pay a dime in income tax if you live in the property for 2 years when you sell it. So definitely talk to your proper tax person about that. But it is so cool. So anyway, maybe that's a good way to launch your investing career, is just to make a nice $50,000 on a flip and then move on. So if you're going to do that, again, check out the book on flipping houses. Please read that book. Please listen to every podcast on flipping. Don't just jump into a flip, because you will lose money. I'm sorry, but most people lose money on their first flips unless they're smart about it. So let's move on, because this is already 6 o'clock. I'm so sorry, people. All right, we're almost done. VA and USDA loan, and we are going to open this up for questions in a minute, so bear with me. VA and USDA loans, these are actually two totally separate things. I just combined them in one because I wanted 12 ways to finance, not 13 ways to finance, because 13 is unlucky. So VA are Veterans Administration. The U.S., if you're an active or former military member, you can get a 0 down loan on a property. And I believe, I mean, I'm not a mortgage broker, but I think that that counts for 2, 3, and 4 unit properties also, which is awesome that you can get it for 0 down. USDA is also a 0 down loan, but instead of working with veterans, the USDA, yes, that is the same organization or same government department that certifies your beef, the Department of Agriculture. They actually do loans. Very few people know this, but they do loans, and they're 0% down loans. The caveat is you have to live in a rural, I can say that, rural area, which means you can't live downtown Seattle, Chicago, New York, DC, whatever. It doesn't mean you have to live out in Podunk, Washington like me, but you can't live in a major city. You got to be outside of it a little ways. And there, if you go to the USDA's website, they have a map. You can see exactly in your area what it looks like. So, HomePath Loans, very similar. Remember I talked about earlier about Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Well, HomePath Loans, I believe, are Fannie Mae and foreclosures. So if Fannie Mae forecloses on a property, they turn them usually into HomePath properties, which then you can get a HomePath loan, which is a 5% down loan for owner-occupied, or 10%, I believe. Again, I'm not a mortgage thing, and these things change daily, but I believe it's 10% for investors, and there's like reduced closing costs, less hassle. I've never done a HomePath actually, but I don't know. Apparently they're cool. So I know a lot of people who have done them and had a good success with that. So don't avoid those. Partnerships are one of my most commonly used strategies to buy real estate. When I said I never put money in, it's because I never do, is because I use a lot of partnerships. Meaning what I do is I find a really good deal. I mean, and I do the math and I do the numbers and I make sure it's perfect. And then I'll talk to somebody and say, hey, look, I got this amazing deal. It's going to cash flow this much, I estimate. Here's this nice form that I printed out from BiggerPockets rental property calculator, and it's going to show you exactly how it's going to be. What I need is the down payment, or what I need is the money, either one. And I get partners to put up the money, and then I manage the deal beginning to end. So all they are is a silent partner putting in the cash, and then we split the deal later, usually 50-50. So I'm a huge advocate of partnerships. Now, there are a lot of dangers with partnerships if you don't set them up right, if you don't pick the right partner, whatever. But partnerships can be really great. Next, hard money. Hard money, I'm going to be very careful with this one. Hard money is usually used by house flippers. It is short-term, very expensive money. I mean, you're talking sometimes 3, 4, 5% fee on top of the money, and then a 10, 12, 15% interest rate on that money. So you can't really be a rental property investor with hard money, and especially since the loans are usually 6 months to a year long anyway. So why would I include it in here? It's because I added hard money to refi. It's a strategy I've done a number of times now where I'll buy a property with a hard money lender, and they end up funding either the whole thing or almost the whole thing. And they fund that part of it, and then as soon as it's fixed up and looking beautiful, I'll turn it over and I'll refinance it with a normal bank, usually a portfolio lender. And the hard money to refi strategy is kind of a cool one. It's dangerous because if you can't get the refi, then you're in trouble. So you need to have a lot of exit strategies if you're going to try that. So I don't recommend a newbie necessarily go out and do that, but I'm just tossing that out there. Next one, private money. Private money is kind of like hard money, but usually it's family and friends. It's usually not a professional that's lending the money, and so usually it's a little bit cheaper or a lot cheaper. I mean, you might want a property that costs $100,000 and you don't have $100,000, so you call up Uncle Eddie and say, hey, Eddie, I know you got all that money from that windfall that the lottery you won. Are you interested in lending $100,000 on this property? I'll give you 8%. I know you're only making 1% right now on your CD. And Uncle Eddie's like, sure, I'll do it. And then you guys, both of you win. So that's private money. Closely related to that is syndication. This is something my good buddy Ben Leibovich is really big on lately, and he's been pulling me into this, sucking into the world of syndication. And that is the idea of raising private money from multiple individuals, perhaps accredited investors like smart investors or people who have a significant amount of money that they don't want to personally go invest in real estate, but they'll invest in you. So you get 10 guys together, each throw in $100,000, you got $1 million, and you go out and buy something big. That's what a syndication is. A very simplistic explanation of it, but very cool strategy. And finally, the last one I want to talk about is creative combinations. Now, what is a creative combination? This is actually the last chapter in the book that I'm writing. Is all about creative combinations, and it's the idea that every one of these, hopefully you guys can see my mouse, but whatever, every one of these kind of can connect with another one. And so you can like put lines across every single one of these and connect them. For example, I might have a partner that has $20,000. Not enough for, to fund a deal entirely, but we might partner together. They'll put the down payment, and then we'll go get a portfolio loan. That is a creative combination. Or I might raise private money from somebody and then go and, I don't know, throw in some of my own cash and make a deal work that way. Or I might do a HomePath loan on my own house and then change that up later. I mean, there's so many different combinations you can do here. I mean, like hundreds of combinations that you can do. You can put together a syndication, throw in some hard money in the mix, and then you have a partnership and make it private money at the end. Who knows? You can kind of have fun with this. And that's what I love about creative real estate investing. It's all about just being creative, making it work, and being awesome and just putting deals together. I mean, that's what a successful real estate investor does, is they put together deals. So here we go. Let's end this thing. We're almost done. We're going to have the question and answer time in just a moment. But what to do next? I like to leave people with kind of a, what should you do at this point? Especially if you're new, maybe you're not new, but what should you do to get started and move forward? Number one, sign up for BiggerPockets Pro, of course. I mean, that's where all the cool guys are at. So, I mean, honestly, like I said, that webinar code, I think it was webinar 30. BiggerPockets Pro is an investment that will pay over and over and over in your life, over and over. And I wish I had done the analysis that I do today. I wish I'd done that 10 years ago, because I would have saved myself thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So number one, sign up for BiggerPockets Pro. Number two, start learning networking and analyzing deals. I can't emphasize this enough. Just get out there and start doing stuff. Start learning and networking, meeting with investors, hanging out on the forums. I mean, here's a few ways to do it, right? Read the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing. Everybody here should know what that is. Hopefully, if not, just go to biggerpockets.com/UBG. It is our ultimate guide. It'll give you a good foundation. Listen to the podcasts. I think the podcasts are probably the number one best way to learn real estate investing, because you're listening from real live investors who are actually doing it. It's really incredible. BiggerPockets forums, another incredible way to learn. Just ask questions. If you want to know something, ask somebody. There's thousands of people on there every day answering questions. So if you want to know, like, I'm struggling to get this 203K loan done, ask somebody, and there's probably 50 people who have done a 203K loan, and they're going to be willing to help you out, because that's the whole spirit of BiggerPockets, is let's help each other out succeed. The BiggerPockets blog, of course, you can read articles. Follow us on Facebook, and you can see those articles. We post them every day. BiggerPockets.com/Facebook or Facebook.com/BiggerPockets. Maybe they both get you there, maybe not, but either way, check us out there. And meet with local investors. This is a great way. I mean, find a local mentor. I mean, don't pay 10 grand for a mentor, but go find a local mentor. Go find somebody, just a local landlord. Ask if you can take them out to coffee. Ask how they did it, how they get started. Build relationships, especially if you are young. If you're a younger person, I mean, I'm thinking under the age of 40. Older investors love to mentor younger investors. There's something about that's like passing on their legacy. I think it has to do with their kids never care. So like they like adopt you like in a weird sort of way. I mean, it's really an incredible thing. Like, get close to older investors and they will teach you everything. Let's go. What to do next? Also, after that, figure out your financing strategy. It's really good to at least know how you're going to finance stuff. Don't just jump into a deal without knowing how you're going to do it. Then start shopping for your rental properties. Grab a real estate agent if you're going to go the MLS route, and just start shopping, start looking, going to open houses, doing the numbers on every single property you look at. Even if it's just the 50% rule or the 2% rule, do it in your head on every property you consider. The more you do, the better you'll get. So number 5 is do the math. When you find a property, do the math. I mean, really sit down, use the calculator, use a spreadsheet, use the back of a napkin or someone's head with a Sharpie, whatever you got to do the math over and over and over. So number 6, do the math again. I mean, really verify. We actually have a whole forum on BiggerPockets called the Deal Analysis Forum. Take your analysis and go bring it on the forum. It's just say, hey, I want to know if you guys think this is a good deal. Here's what my numbers look like. Do you agree? And you'll get investors from across the world saying, hey, here's why it's a good idea. Here's why it's bad. Hey, it looks like you forgot insurance. Or thanks to Anthony, hey, it looks like you put insurance as monthly instead of annual. Like, I mean, that's what BiggerPockets is all about, and I love it. I mean, I'm obsessed with how cool that is. So it's definitely cool. And finally, at the end, just put the deal together. Be creative. Don't take no for an answer. Just put together a deal. If it's a solid deal, you can make it happen. So finally, rinse and repeat. I mean, just do over and over and over and over. Just get creative, continue to learn, continue to analyze, and you will do amazing things. You'll be 10 years from now, you'll look back and just be shocked at how far you've come. 5 years, 2 years from now, you'll look back. So thank you very much, everybody, very, very much for coming to the webinar. You guys rock. Once again, I just wanted to, before I take question and answer, if you want to sign up for BiggerPockets Pro today, 30% off, biggerpockets.com/pro, or just the link at the bottom of this page. And when you're prompted to put in a coupon code, just type in webinar 30, and you get 30% off, which is huge. So don't spread that link around. I mean, that's going to expire real soon. I think it's this weekend it'll expire, but don't spread it around anyway, because we want people to be on the webinar in order to get that. That's your reward. Anyway, so we're going to do a question and answer time here. Let me just get over to my document that I have Jaron helping me out with, showing me how to do, let's see. You know what, Jaron? I'm actually going to need questions in hip chat. Everybody else ignore that, but Jaron, I'm going to need questions here because I can't get the doc working. So anyway, if anybody has any questions at all that I can help with, I'm here. You know, you're more than welcome to head out if you want to, but I'm here for you. 1 second. I'm going to log in, and then we're going to take some questions. So let's see. Let me. Sorry, guys. This is awkward. You know. All right. So. All right. First question. I think he's typing it. It says Jaron Barnes is typing. So we're gonna see what he has to say. By the way, I hope everyone's doing good today. I mean, I know like you guys are still hanging around. It looks like nobody's really dropping off the webinar, which is awesome. You're all like sitting here. So, all right. So first question, while I try to get into the back end here of the questions, but the first one is from Catherine. It said, I'm interested in flipping high-end properties. However, I'm a brand new investor with no money. Most listed properties are at market value. How do you find properties that are 30% below market? Isn't that a rule of thumb for investment properties? Very much so. That's a great, great question. All right, so today's market is very, very hot in a lot of areas of the country. I mean, properties are going, you list a property at 100,000 and it's sold a week later or 3 days later for 120. I mean, how do you flip houses in that? What she's referring to with the 30% below market value is something known as the 70% rule. If you're going to flip houses, there's another rule of thumb that says if you're going to offer on a property, go 70% of whatever the after repair value is, and then subtract out your repair costs. So $100,000 times 70% is 70,000, and then minus the repair cost of 30, and you should pay 40,000 for it. That is very difficult in the hot market. So how do you do that? A couple thoughts. One, the most popular way, honestly, is direct mail. I mean, time and time again, investors are coming on the podcast, they're coming on the forums, and they're saying, I'm using direct mail to find deals. Now, there are people who have done direct mail and lost, but it takes time. It takes a lot of time to do, to find good deals. So, yeah, direct mail is probably the best way. Things like online advertising. I mean, any marketing you can do. The answer is, I mean, to sum up, you have to be proactive. The MLS is a passive way to find deals, and in most areas you can't do that anymore. So, if you want to be successful with finding them, yeah, get active, get out there. So hopefully that helps. Next one, from Danielle, do you recommend larger down payments, like 20%, or is less more so you can use the actual cash for upgrades and whatnot? That's an interesting question. I mean, that's a tough question, but I'm gonna give my thoughts. The less money you put down, the higher return on investment you will get, if that makes sense. So if you put down 100% on a property, you're probably going to get a smaller return than you would doing more. And so should you put down more or less? It's tough. All right, so I would say you want to start by looking at your own life. The more money you put down, the better cash flow you'll probably get. So if you need more cash flow, maybe you want to put more down, or maybe you want to find a better deal. If you are young and you can handle the risk a little bit, maybe you want to put less down. I mean, that's kind of the way I've moved forward, is saying that I'm young, I can handle making a few mistakes. I want the cash flow. I can handle if something goes wrong. I can go up on a roof and fix a window leak. And people are probably laughing now because they know that's my story. I recently did that. I mean, I can do that because I'm young. I can get on a roof, and rather than paying $500 for somebody to fix it, I can go fix it in an emergency. And therefore, if I screw something up a little bit and I don't have quite as much, and I leveraged a little too much, I'm okay. If you want to be more secure, the older you get, the more secure you need, the less time you have to fix your errors, the more I would put down. So maybe there's a happy medium in there. And I like to think the happy medium is partner up. You know, find a partner that will put down the down payments. You put no money into it. You can do those deals all day long. I mean, like you do twice as many deals, but split them all 50-50, and now you've done the same number of deals, but you have no money into them. That's kind of how I look at it. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's see. Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked this. I'm looking at a property from a wholesaler that already has a renter in it. I'm assuming the renter paid the first month's rent to the previous owner. How do I handle that situation? So I'm guessing, I'm just going to make a couple assumptions here. I think, let's see. My first assumption is that you're buying it as a rental property. And so it already has a renter in it. You're buying it as a rental property. I'm assuming the renter paid the first month's rent to the previous owner. How do I handle that? So how do I get the money back? When you buy a property from a normal owner, all security deposits should transfer. I mean, that's something I would ask the wholesaler to make sure he asks the other guy, is it going to transfer? That said, if you're buying from a wholesaler, it means the landlord that you're buying it from is probably in a distressed situation, which means he spent that money on, I don't know, something else. I won't guess what it was, but he spent that money on something else, right? You probably won't get it. So the fact is, I would probably assume you're going to chalk that up as a loss. You're not going to get that security deposit. And when it comes time to giving your tenant the security deposit back, you're just going to have to, fork it over at that point if they leave it in good enough condition. So that's probably how I would look at that. Cassandra asked, how can I churn through MLS listings and find some properties to consider? Okay, so what I do, I mean, there's a number of sites like I talked about. There's the MLS, there's Redfin, themlsonline.com, www.themlsonline.com. In certain states that works, certain states it doesn't. I know Washington and Minnesota it does, but I don't know if other ones it does. That's my favorite probably. Redfin's probably second favorite. Realtor's probably third, Zillow, and Trulia. So, I mean, that's one way to do it, is going to there, and they all have search criteria. So, for example, on Zillow, actually, I have set up right now alerts. So every time a new multifamily, I think it's multifamily with Zillow, every time a new multifamily comes up in my area, Zillow sends me a message saying, hey, a new multifamily came up in your area. That's a really good way to screen through a lot of properties, is letting them do the work for you. The same things that we said about your real estate agent. Any real estate agent should have the ability to automatically send you updates when a new property hits the market. Like automatically, they don't have to do it by hand. I definitely do that. And then it comes down to, like, when you're looking at properties, it's kind of like a funnel. I was actually going to make a slide for this, and I even had a little picture, and I started working on the slide, and then I gave up because it was too much work. But they do have like a funnel, like you're pouring oil into a lawnmower, right? You have a wide funnel on top, and it funnels down to a little one. The first funnel I look at is location. So I narrow a certain location, a certain farm area, we call it. And so when I choose Grays Harbor County. That's the county I live in. It's called Grays Harbor. I'll buy anything in Grays Harbor. And then I go down and narrow it more by doing property type. So I'm going to say I'm only interested in 2 to 4 unit properties, because that's what I want right now. So I go 2 to 4 unit, and then I narrow it down usually by price. I'll go cheapest to most expensive, and then I just run through the numbers. And I usually use the 2% rule to kind of quickly gauge which ones I want to click on. So if I think, well, this is a fourplex, I know fourplexes rent for each unit $500 a piece. That's $2,000 a month. They're only asking $100,000 for this property. That's a 2% rule. I'm going to click on that and read more about it. I mean, that's how much time it takes to look at one. So if you can do it in 10 seconds, you can look through 10 of them every minute. I mean, you can get through a lot of properties in an hour of scanning the MLS. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Next one, do you ever fear making a lowball offer to a multi-unit owner? I don't really fear making lowball offers ever. That said, I expect to get shot down. I once heard somebody say that if you're getting more than 1 out of 10 of your offers accepted, you're offering too much. I don't know if I don't know if I've completely followed that my whole life. I tend to get too many accepted, but maybe I'm offering too much then. But the worst they can say is no. You know, the worst they can say is no. They might be a little offended and they might, you know, get their undies in a bundle or something. But, you know, you never know till you try. And especially I like about multifamilies is you can sit down and, I mean, you could show the seller a thing like a printout, like the rental property calculator. You can say, look, this is how it's going to, this is why I'm offering you this number. It's because this is what it's worth. It's not worth any more than that. This is how much work I'm going to have to do to put into it. So especially with multifamily, there's a lot less emotion involved, and that's why I like multifamily, especially larger ones, 20, 30, 50 units. That's a lot of fun. So let's go next. Here's a good question. We're new to real estate in the Metro Detroit area. Can you please explain on why you don't feel wholesaling is a good method for beginners? All right, so I'm going to get myself into trouble, some trouble here. Because I often say that I don't think it's a good idea for beginners. Here's why I say that. It should be a good idea for beginners. It really should. In theory, it should be. And I used to actually tell newbies to start with wholesaling. Just like a lot of, like, you know, internet people, like gurus and stuff, they all like to say start with wholesaling, and that's what they kind of sell the dream. And here's why I say I don't think it's a good idea. Is because over the last 2 years of being on BiggerPockets, like every day, I've probably seen 10,000 people come in and welcome themselves on the forums, which, speaking of that, everybody here should go and leave a new member introduction if you haven't yet. There's a forum called New Member Introductions. I think everybody has done a new member introduction. Or every wholesaler has done one, probably 10,000 in the past year. I can think of like one, maybe not even one, that's still doing it today. That's still in real estate today. And I don't have an answer of why that is. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that might be. I mean, the fact that it's sold is an easy thing, and it's not easy. The fact that on paper it makes so much sense. I mean, like the whole direct mail idea, right? You send out 1,000 letters, you get 5%, that's 50 calls. You can close 1 in 50, you get a deal. You make $5,000 for every $1,000 you spend on direct mail. Scale that baby up. I mean, it seems so easy. I don't know why it doesn't work, but it doesn't work. I mean, like, there's very, 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 very few wholesalers that I know. I mean, I can't even think of hardly any off the top of my head. Maybe a few that we've interviewed on the podcast that have been exceptionally good wholesalers. But those people tend to come from a sales background. They tend to be good at running their own business. And most new investors aren't. I mean, wholesaling is a means to an end. It's a job. And there's nothing wrong with having a job, but I kind of figure, like, why not just go buy an investment property instead? So I mean, that's kind of my summary. If people want to do it, great, do it. Go rock at it, because like I said, it should work. It really should. It doesn't, and I don't know. I can't explain why. It just doesn't seem to work the way that people think it should. All right, another question. I have horrible credit from the bad economy and being laid off a lot, and cancer in the family. I'm very, very sorry. I actually have that as well in my family, so I feel for you. But what lenders will give me a chance or lend on my business and leave my personal info out? So specific lenders, I don't necessarily know like the actual names of them. I would begin with portfolio lenders. Like I said, they're definitely more flexible. But honestly, perhaps the best way to go with that kind of situation is, I mean, here's a flip I did a year and a half ago. I talked to some friends of mine, actually. I met them at church, and they said they wanted to get into real estate, but they don't have time. They had good credit and they had good income, and I said, well, why don't we flip a house together? And I ended up, they got, no, not a flip. Sorry, let me go back. They actually did a flip with me, but it makes more sense to explain. We bought a rental property. We bought a triplex together right after the flip. They said, they said they want to get into rental properties as well, and so what we ended up doing, they got the mortgage in their name. I never even qualified for the mortgage. I never filled out an application. I never did anything. They got the mortgage in their name. They got the down payment they put down for the rental property. What I did is I found the deal, I put it all together. I manage the property now. My wife takes care of it. And the loan is 100% in their name. I mean, the bank's okay with that. The title is in both of our names. The title's in my name, the title's in their name. And the bank's okay as long as the loan's in their name. That's a really good way to get around the credit issue. Now, again, that does take some trust on the part of the partner. I mean, it takes a lot of trust, right? They gotta trust you. But if you get a good enough deal, again, everything that we're talking about today begins with a good deal. If there's one lesson you take away from today, there's one lesson. It's everything begins with a good deal, and every good deal begins with math. And that's why I push so hard. I mean, yes, I want you to upgrade BiggerPockets Pro because I want you to support BiggerPockets. But honestly, everything begins with the math. if you're not a math person, if you don't want to plunk this out on paper, I mean, like the calculators help you do that. So anyway, I don't need to go into that again, but it all begins with the math. So find a really, really good deal, find a partner, and that's a really good way. Have them get the credit or co-sign on it until you can do it. And specifically, you asked about how to get them to lend on your business. That's really, really hard. You're probably looking at a commercial lender, which any bank can do commercial. Most banks can do commercial loans, and they care more about the property and the business than they do about your personal, but they still almost always run a personal credit report. They still want to know that you personally have decent credit. So I just do everything you can to improve that credit as quickly as possible. Just get it up moderately good. I had some friends that had like a 500 credit score, I think it was, like 550 or something like that, or 525, and he just got approved for a mortgage. I mean, a year ago he had like a 500 and some credit score. Now he's got approved for a mortgage, and his credit score is like 690, and just because they worked at it for a year. And they knew that's what they wanted, and so they buckled down, read some books on how to do it, and they improved it. So anyway, kind of combine those two things, and you might be able to do it. So Anthony asked, is the 2% rule based on asking or purchase price? I'm going to say technically purchase price. 2% rule. I mean, I run it as if the asking price, but I'm going to look at that based on what I'm going to pay for it. So I don't care what somebody's asking for a property. They could be asking $1 million, but if they'll sell it to me for $100,000, then I want it to rent for at least $2,000 a month. And so, yeah, technically 2% rule I put down as the purchase price. Let's see. I got a ton of questions here, so I'm not gonna be able to get through probably every single one. So I apologize if you have to go or whatever, but I'm gonna do like 3 or 4 more. Wow, there's a lot of questions. All right, how long does it usually take to get a new tenant in a vacant unit? Let's see. That was Mike said that. Mike. For me, I mean, it really depends, obviously, on how good you are. For me, we're at about a week and a half, 2 weeks to get a unit re-rented. But we're a little bit unusual because we own the properties that we're renting out, and so we take a personal like vendetta against like vacancy. And so like I think last year we had a 99% occupancy rate, and the year before we had like a 99% because we go full bore towards filling vacant units. So like as soon as we get notice that it's vacant, we have Craigslist ads on every day. We're renewing them every couple days. We put up signs sometimes in local grocery stores. We put a sign out front. We put the property on like Postlets on Zillow. We would put it all over the place. So that's how it is for me anyway. Again, that's probably different for other people, but let's see. Let's go to let me read through these. All right, I'm a newbie, no experience. What at all? I found a property which has renters who are Section 8 and love where they live. How would this work if I purchase the property? So you found a property that there's Section 8 tenants already living there. I'm assuming that's what I'm assuming I'm reading this right. There's a property that has tenants already living there. They're Section 8. How would that work if I purchase the property? Well, I guess first of all, I'm assuming you're not going to be living there unless you were thinking. I guess I'll answer it from both perspectives. If you're going to buy that as a small multifamily with like an FHA loan, I mean, technically you probably could ask them to leave if their lease was over, depending on what state you're in, or you can, not move in. Well, I guess you have to if it's an FHA loan. If you're just buying it as a rental property, there's nothing wrong. You can keep those tenants again for another. I mean, just if they're good tenants, keep them. If they're not, get rid of them when their lease is over. I see nothing wrong with that. Again, make sure you understand the rules of your state, and you have to make sure you abide by that. You don't want to get in trouble there. Let's see. I'm new to real estate and want to get into wholesaling and fix and flips. What is the best way to estimate ARV without access to the MLS? Are Zillow and RealQuest Express close enough? No. So how do I estimate ARV? This is a long. I go on forever for this. And again, I know you guys already hate me for plugging this, but seriously, when my book comes out, I have like 500 pages. It feels like on just finding how to value comps. But what I would do is this. The simplest way to do it is to ask a real estate agent. I mean, a good real estate agent, if you're going to do a fix and flip, if you can incentivize them with the idea that you're going to list with them. I mean, you got to find the right agent that's willing to kind of help you out. And it's kind of a charity thing at first because there's no guarantee they're going to get anything. Ask a real estate agent though. It really helps. Ask a real estate agent. If they don't want to help you out with that, at least ask them for comps. a real estate agent can usually give you comps, and then you can kind of sit down and look. Well, this 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you wouldn't drove by that looks identical to the one you're about to flip or wholesale sold for $100,000. This one probably will as well. Another way to do that is doing it with square footage. Find 3 or 4 similar properties that are very similar to what the value is going to be on yours once you finish it, once it's fixed up, and then figure out how much price per square foot that property is. And then just if it's $20 a square foot that people are paying, then look at your property. If your property is 1,000 square feet, then you can pay, well, I guess that's pretty low, huh? If it's $100 a square foot and it's 1,000 square foot, then you could probably sell it for $100,000. I mean, that's kind of a real simple way to do it. But again, I think the best way is just try to learn how a real estate agent will do it. There's a lot of posts on BiggerPockets actually that will walk you through exactly how to figure out what a property is worth. But I would not generally rely on Zillow. I don't think that they're close enough. I've never, at least in my area, I've never seen them close enough. And if you're trying to wholesale, like I said, wholesaling is tough. You've got to have a good grasp on your ARV, your after repair value. So I highly recommend doing as much as you can to get the real numbers, closest as you can, so that when you present it to your cash buyer and say, look, here's the deal, you show them the BiggerPockets, that printout, you need those numbers to be absolutely correct, or else you're going to look like a fool in front of them, and they're not going to want to work with you in the future. You're going to get a bad reputation. So anyway, take the time to learn how to analyze a comp. Again, there's a lot of posts on BiggerPockets on the blog you can find about that to learn a little more. So I think I'm going to try to do, let's see, maybe one more. I'm looking for my first property. Do you think it's more difficult to find renters for a multifamily home than it is for a single-family home? Good question. Personally, it's almost a wash for me. I mean, I feel like one should be easier than the other, but maybe it's my area, and I'm sure it's going to differ by the area. But I have an equally difficult time for both. Because there's always people looking. There's a lot of people who just like living in multifamily properties, and there's a lot of people who like living in single-family homes. I tend to get more stable people in single-family properties. They stay longer. There's less turnover. There's less headache with single-family. That said, if I'm going to go buy one single-family house, it's the same amount of work as buying a 20-unit apartment building, almost, not quite, but you know what I mean. Like, one loan is one loan, one application is one application. So that's why I tend to like multifamily more, is for the scalability of it. But single-family houses are much easier to manage, especially within a good area, good school district, and you got a good deal on it, and there's good cash flow that you can afford to. It's a newer house. I mean, yeah. So that's that. Let me get one more question here. Let me find one more that I can hit up. All right, I'm not sure I'm going to end with this one. I'm not sure I'm the #1 best person to do this, but I think it's an interesting question. My wife wants to look at properties in resort areas. What tips do you have for finding good properties? Now, the reason I say I'm not the best at answering this is because I'm never bought a resort property before, but I want to, and so I've been kind of looking into it lately, so I'll at least share my opinion on it. One, it's very difficult to cash flow properties in resort areas. I've heard that time and time and time again. I want to buy a condo in Hawaii. I mean, I really want to buy a condo in Hawaii, and I would love to do that, but it's very, very difficult to cash flow. Now, there is like that whole movement of Airbnb that's going on right now that is, shaking up the hotel industry, where you can rent out a property by the week. Basically, turn your condo, turn your house or whatever into a hotel. And really, I mean, that's kind of a cool idea, and that's what I'm thinking for Hawaii, is to do that. That said, I've heard property management on those kind of things can be extremely expensive. If you don't live near the resort area, you can maybe be paying 30-40% for property management just to have somebody else manage that for you. Well, there goes a lot of your cash flow. So the same principle applies to buying in resort areas as buying in others, is that it all depends on the deal, and the deal depends on the math. And but resort areas offer that additional difficulty of you don't know the area probably, unless you go there often, which maybe you do. But I'm comfortable with pretty much every area of my county because I've been there. I know who lives there. I know what property values are. But when you're in a resort town, you might be a block over where nobody wants to stay there, and you don't know that because there's these little nuances of the town. So if you're going to do that, I would recommend taking yourself a nice month-long vacation and go and just live there for a month. Chalk it up. I don't know. Ask your CPA if you can deduct it on taxes because you're doing research or recon or whatever, and explore it. See if you can do it. And just understand the math. Run the numbers. Run the numbers. Run the numbers. Run the numbers. And maybe find somebody who already has a resort property in that town that you can just connect with. Maybe they're on BiggerPockets. Maybe you can search them by county records. Maybe you can just ask the local property management companies if you can connect with one of them. Maybe your first deal, you partner with them on it. You put part of the money down. They put part of the money down. Those are just a few tips I got for that. So last thing before I go, I wish I could do all these questions. Somebody asked if we're going to have another webinar again. I do want to do more webinars. I'll probably do this webinar again at some point soon. Just like an exact repeat of it, just because I think it's pretty helpful for people getting started. I'll probably do this one again. I'd also like to do ones on flipping. I like to do ones on wholesaling. Once I set them up the first time, it's a lot easier. It was a little difficult in the beginning of this one to just kind of get through, but I really hope that we can do a lot more of these in the future because I think they're so valuable. Just sit down and just talk for an hour or two on how to get started, how to get moving forward. I mean, I don't know everything. I am not an expert at all things real estate investing, but I like to think with my position here at BP and the mistakes that I've made in my past, hopefully I can shed some light on some stuff for you guys. So the last thing I just want to leave you with, two things. One, obviously, if you want to sign up for Pro, it's a webinar 30 at biggerpockets.com/pro or the button at the bottom of this page. And lastly, please jump into the forums. Come say hi. Send me a call request. Let me know that you watched the webinar. Introduce yourself in the new member introduction area. Follow us on Facebook. Just get connected. The people who are most active on the site are the people that are doing the deals. I see it time and time again. Newbies come on and they say, I'm so excited about doing something, and then they never post, they never reply again, they don't even check in, and they never get involved in real estate. They lose the fire so quickly. So if you want to be active, if you want to be an active real estate investor, be an active BiggerPockets member. Jump in. I mean, it's a membership is free. Pro membership is just $29 a month, and $20 if you use the coupon code today. So, very last thing I promise is there is a forum thread right now on the forums. I'm not going to read you the whole URL, but you can just go look for it. I think it's like biggerpockets.com/forums. There's a topic on this webinar, and you can just give some feedback about it. Just let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Tell me that you hated my horrible, awkward introduction. And yeah, guys, thank you very much for being a part of this webinar. Love you all. Talk to you guys later. Take care.